Good morning, Kuhner country. Holy shamoly. What a 48 hours it has been. So, as most of you now know, President Trump sent J.D. Vance to Islamabad, the capital of Pakistan, as the Obama would call it, Pakistan. And after 21 hours of marathon talks, no deal. Absolutely no deal. They weren't even close to a deal. And J.D. Vance said, look, we spoke, we talked, and we laid out red lines for the IRGC. And make no mistake about it now, the regime that now runs Tehran is composed of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, the hardliners. And the hardliners from Tehran, believe it or not, came in thinking that effectively they've won the war because they are currently blockading the Strait of Hormuz. And as J.D. Vance said later, they overplayed their hand. They came in thinking they had leverage, that they were holding the cards, when they don't hold any card except the Strait of Hormuz card, which President Trump is, as I speak to you now, about to take care of. But before I get to that, J.D. Vance said, we laid out clearly, coherently, as straightforward as possible, directly, the red lines for the United States that we will not allow Iran to cross. And the biggest one is no nuclear weapons, period. Give up your nuclear ambitions. Give up your dream of a bomb. No domestic uranium enrichment capability whatsoever. None. Those are our absolute red lines. Plus, you cannot develop intercontinental ballistic missiles, and you must stop support for terrorist proxies across the Middle East. These are the hard red lines that Trump says the Ayatollahs or the IRGC cannot violate or cross at all. They must agree to these new red lines. You cannot have a nuclear bomb, a nuclear program, nuclear uranium enrichment. Period. Full stop. The Ayatollahs were not having it. And so what is very crystal clear is that they are not willing to give up their nuclear ambitions. And so J.D. Vance said, look, after 21 grueling hours, we went back and forth and back and forth. But in the end, we got good news. They know exactly where we stand. They know exactly what's expected of them. The bad news, there's no deal. Roll cut 11. Mike.
We have been at it now for 21 hours, and we've had a number of substantive discussions with the Iranians. That's the good news. The bad news is that we have not reached an agreement, and I think that's bad news for Iran much more than it's bad news for the United States of America. So we go back to the United States having not come to an agreement. We've made very clear what our red lines are, what things we're willing to accommodate them on, and what things we're not willing to accommodate them on. And we've made that as clear as we possibly could, and they have chosen not to accept our terms.
Now, so with that, this set up the dramatic announcement. This was Saturday. By yesterday, the whole world changed and flipped again. Because President Trump, you want to talk about 3D chess. You want to talk about thinking outside the box. You want to talk about whatever cliche, whatever analogy you want to use, pulling a rabbit out of the hat. President Trump then announced that at 10 a.m. today, Eastern Standard Time, so what is it, less than 4 hours, the United States military, the United States Navy, will now impose a crushing blockade on the Strait of Hormuz. In other words, we are now going to blockade the blockaders. And in particular, this now sets a massive showdown between us and Iran. As you know, the Iranians have been blocking the Strait of Hormuz. They have been charging a toll to the few ships that they're allowing through. And this is, in a sense, cutting off the oil and energy flows to the entire world. All that oil coming from the Gulf states, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Qatar, that so much of the world, especially Europe and Asia, relies on, is now being backlogged and choked off by the Iranians. This is driving oil and gas prices through the roof. Well, Trump now has turned the blockade onto the Iranians themselves, saying, if the Persian Gulf countries can't sell their oil, then you, the mullahs, can't sell yours as well. In other words, Trump now is going to strangle economically the entire Iranian economy because oil is the lifeblood of Tehran. And so he announced yesterday that starting 10 o'clock this morning, our time, U.S. Navy, U.S. forces will now impose a massive comprehensive blockade. No ships entering or exiting the Strait of Hormuz from Iranian ports. Now, this is very important. If you're not coming from an Iranian port, the blockade does not affect you. If you're coming from Saudi Arabia or Oman or Kuwait or Iraq or whatever, that's fine. But if you're a ship and you are entering or exiting the Strait of Hormuz, heading for a port of Iran, you will be stopped and you will be interdicted. You will be prevented from leaving or coming, period. Furthermore, the United States is now going to go after every ship that has paid a toll to the Iranians. They are not going to allow the extortion of tolling ships to go on any longer. This is now over. So President Trump is now telling the Iranians and the world, the United States Navy is going to restore the free and open navigation of the seas and will reopen that vital waterway. And as the blockade now is taking hold, slowly but surely, our blockade, the U.S. Navy, under orders from Trump, has now sent in minesweepers. So we are now demining, slowly but surely, the Strait of Hormuz. And so the goal is we are going to clear the Strait of Hormuz of all mines. It's going to take a while, but it's starting to happen already. And Iran will not be able to sell or export any oil or receive any cargo, any ships, any. If the Chinese are going to try to arm them, good luck. Nothing is going to go into these ports of Iran. Nothing is coming out. And so the question now is, what will Iran do? As President Trump rightly said, we have destroyed Iran's navy and their air force and their air defenses, and their military has been devastated. But the mullahs still have about 300 to 500 speed attack boats. These are very nimble boats that they use to drop mines or to attack or threaten shipping on the strait. They're going to try to launch these speed attack boats to harass our ships and try to harass commercial tankers to continue to keep the economic pressure on the world economy. So we're going to see what the Iranians do. Are they going to start attacking our ships? Are they going to try to sink our ships? And the bigger question now, and this is a calculation that Trump is making, which side has the greater threshold for pain? Because now that Iran cannot sell its oil, this, as I said, is going to strangle and choke the Iranian economy. But it's also, remember, Iran has been selling oil on the international market. So you cut off Iranian oil on top of all the oil that's now being blocked in the Strait of Hormuz. Oil prices, gas prices are going to go even higher. Analysts say now it could go as high for this country as $5 a gallon. Okay, President Trump pulls off a spectacular military maneuver. He now has performed what they call geopolitical jiu-jitsu. He has turned the blockade upon the mullahs themselves. So it is not just Iran now that is blockading the Strait of Hormuz. Our Navy is in the process, and it will fully implement this in less than 4 hours, 10 a.m. our time today. A thorough, comprehensive blockade of the Iranian ports in the Strait of Hormuz. In plain English, Iran will not be able to send out any ships or have any ships come into their ports, and in particular, that means oil on top of other things they export and they import, but in particular, their oil revenue is going to dry up. They will not get a penny from selling oil on the international market. This is going to cripple the regime economically. Iran says this will be considered an act of war. Well, we're already at war. And they say now that they are going to attack our Navy and start using anti-ship missiles, drones. They have a fleet of speedboats to try to bring down our ships and continue to place mine after mine after mine. We already have minesweepers going through the Strait of Hormuz. And President Trump now said yesterday clearly, Iran will never be allowed to toll the Strait of Hormuz. Any ship that pays a toll will be stopped and interdicted by the U.S. Navy. So here we are. The 6-week war has now entered a new phase. So I want to ask you, do you support the blockade? Let me be brutally honest with you. When I heard it, I said genius. Absolute, from a military point of view, absolute genius. Because it hits the Ayatollahs right where it hurts, which is their main economic lifeline, oil and oil revenue. So it really affects the regime. Unlike, say, bombing bridges or bombing power plants, which really would affect the civilians, the people of Iran, who we want to rise up against the Ayatollahs. So the last thing we want to do is cause them needless pain and misery. This hurts the Ayatollahs, and it hits them hard. In fact, you do this blockade for even a couple months, you strangle them. This goes on for 2-3 months, and it's like, a cage fight. They just tap out. They have to tap out because they literally have no money to run their country, to pay their military, to pay their fighters. The regime will collapse. There's no question. So Trump now has them by the tonsils, and he's squeezing and squeezing. Listen now to President Trump saying there's also a side benefit to all of this. If oil isn't coming out of the Persian Gulf, and now even Iran can't sell their oil, you know what's happening? There's an armada, a fleet of empty oil tankers heading to the Gulf of America. They're coming here, and they're loading up their tankers with American oil. And as Trump said, we're selling it to them at $100 a barrel. And it's a beautiful thing to see. Roll cut 1A, Mike.
One other thing that's happening is that boats are sailing up and heading out to our country. Big, beautiful tankers, and we're loading them up with oil and gas and everything else. And it's a pretty beautiful thing to see.
Now, this is before the deal collapsed, what I'm going to play right now, because this already began Friday into Saturday. So as they were still negotiating, but it was pretty clear that there just wasn't going to be a deal, that the mullahs are stubborn, they are defiant, they are fanatical, and they overplayed their hand. They really thought that this blockade of the Strait would bring us to our knees. And when J.D. Vance came in there and said, look, you guys think you have the cards, you don't have the cards. Trump announced that we're already sending in minesweepers. In other words, Trump has made the decision that the U.S. Navy, and he says other countries will help. He's not telling us which, but he says there are a couple of countries that have agreed to help us both with the blockade and now with the demining of the Strait of Hormuz. Listen now to Trump saying, as I speak to you now, this was over the weekend, we're already beginning to send in minesweepers. We're going to unblock and clear the Strait of Hormuz. It's now only a matter of time. Roll cut 2A, Mike.
Sweepers out there, we're sweeping the strait. In addition to that, we're negotiating. Whether we make a deal or not makes no difference to me. And the reason is because we've won, whether you listen to the fake news or not.
So President Trump now, clearly, the end game is now in sight. We have won the war militarily. Iran's military has been shattered and devastated. Their nuclear program has been obliterated. Do you support President Trump's decision now to impose a blockade on Iran, a naval blockade? Now, I want to stress this because there seems to be a little bit of confusion. Many of you are saying, hold on, Jeff, are we blockading the Strait of Hormuz as well? No. And what I mean by that is, if ships come from, say, Saudi Arabia or Kuwait, or I'm just picking countries now randomly, Iraq, whatever, we'll let them through. We don't care. Non-Iranian ships or ships not destined for Iran, we're going to let them through. So we're not blocking anybody except ships trying to enter or exit the Strait of Hormuz going to Iranian ports. So if they're heading towards an Iranian port in the Strait of Hormuz or exiting an Iranian port from the Strait of Hormuz, we are blockading that. So, i.e., the oil tankers carrying Iranian oil, niet, we're blocking. Any cargo, any steel or petrochemicals or anything they're trying to ship abroad, we block. Anything coming into them, doesn't matter what it is, we're going to blockade. So this is a blockade aimed at Iranian ports and at Iranian cargo going into and out of the Strait of Hormuz. Any other non-Iranian ship or cargo is not affected by this blockade. So we are not doing what the Ayatollahs, what the Islamists are doing in Iran. They're blocking. It's a complete blockade of any ship unless you pay a toll. Our blockade is aimed specifically and only at Iranian ports. So this is targeting the regime. It's targeting the economic ability and capacity of the regime. It's targeting their lifeline, which is oil and exporting oil. The goal now is to starve the mullahs of any revenue for their war machine, for themselves, to pay their military, to pay their soldiers, and without alienating the civilian population. Now, let me ask all of you two questions, and then I want to go right to the phone lines. 617-266-6868. The reason why, and Trump admits this is nothing controversial. The reason why Trump realizes this is high risk, potentially brutally effective, but high risk, is number one, it is going to lead now to even a higher price of oil and gas. Because now Iran's oil supply is going to be choked off from going to world markets. So there's even going to be less oil that people can buy on the open market. So it's going to lead to even higher prices. So when you go to the gas pump, expect oil to, the cost of gas to go up. I paid $4 yet, literally $4. I tanked up yesterday. It was, it hurt. I'm telling you, it was expensive. So it's at $4 a gallon where I went, regular, just simple, regular, unleaded, $4. It's now, it could go up to $4.50, maybe even $5. We shall see. So there is going to be a lot of short-term economic pain here at home, across Europe, across Asia, across much of the world economy. Now, can the oil markets endure this for the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, however long Trump wants to continue to tighten and implement this blockade? The second point, now that we're going to be blockading Iran and we're sending in our minesweepers to demine the Strait of Hormuz, to unblock it, we are going to be operating very close to Iran's coastline. That's just the nature of the beast. They have anti-ship missiles there. They have drones. I mentioned their speed attack fleet, these speedboats that they use, about 300 to 500 of these boats. They also have apparently now sent in their Navy Special Operations Forces. So Iran is going to try to hit one of our ships or multiple ships and inflict damage and even casualties on our sailors. So it does increase the risk that more Americans will be killed, sailors and soldiers, as we go ahead with the demining, the clearing of the strait, and by imposing this crippling blockade. Is it worth the risk? Now, I say yes. I think Trump needs to clear the Strait of Hormuz. And then once he does that, and the mullahs capitulate, he's won, they've lost, he can come home. But make no mistake about it, gas prices are going to stay high, and they're going to maybe even go up even more. And the longer this drags on, the more likely it is that gas prices will not come down by the midterm, for the midterm elections. So we shall see. Hopefully they will. I want them to, obviously. But this is a high-risk calculation by the president. But he believes you cut off the oil, you cut off the lifeblood of the regime. And then the Iranians will have no cards to play. 617-266-6868. Good move, bad move. Do you support it or do you not support it? Mark in Medford. You're going to kick us off, Mark. Thanks for holding. And as always, welcome.
Good morning, Jeff, and happy Monday to you.
Happy Monday, my friend.
Jeff, this is a great move. First of all, Jeff, we are going to reap the rewards from this risk, okay? Because eventually the gas prices will come down. But our president is a freaking genius. Do you hear me, Jeff? Genius. Was this his plan the whole time, Jeff? Knowing Iran wasn't going to make a peace deal? This falls on the things that make you go, If I do this, then they'll all bang U-turns and make a beeline for the United States, where I can sell oil by the millions and millions of barrels. And that's why eventually, Jeff, the gas prices will come down. But also, Jeff, I don't believe Iran about anything they say about they're going to take out our Navy ships in the Strait, because yesterday we had several ships going through. The Iranian Navy issued warnings to them. The United States went right through, and not a freaking bullet was fired because they got nothing. They might have a dinghy, but that's about it, Jeff.
Mark, let me ask you this. I could play the cut. I'm going to play it later. He went on Maria Bartiromo, President Trump did, and you could tell now he's feeling good. He sent JD. We know exactly where the Iranians stand. I think Trump now can show the world, hey, look, I gave them an open hand. I offered them sanctions, lifting of the sanctions. The regime stays in power, and even some kind of a joint control over the Strait of Hormuz. No toll. He said absolutely nowhere they're going to toll. But I was going to give them some sway and influence over the Strait of Hormuz, and lifting the sanctions so they can rebuild their economy. And they slapped us in the face. They said no deal because they don't want to give up their nuclear program. So Trump said, now I'm clean. My hands are clean. You've all seen who the mullahs are and what the nature of this regime is. Maria then asked him, point blank, will oil prices be down in time for the midterm elections? And Trump gave a very honest answer. He said, I don't know. I hope so. I want so, obviously, but I honestly don't know. In other words, he may be heading into the midterms with gas at $4, maybe even $5 a gallon. Okay, Trump now is imposing a blockade on every single Iranian port, primarily in the Strait of Hormuz, but doesn't matter. There are other islands that Iran has. The blockade will be effective there too. So he is now looking to cripple and ultimately choke and strangle the Iranian economy, especially their ability to sell oil. By doing this, he is going to economically knock Iran out. However, in the short term, gas and oil prices will not just remain high, they will actually go up even more. So, President Trump was asked by Maria Bartiromo, specifically, do you think the price of what you're paying at the pump, will the price of gas at the pump be down or what it was before the war by the time we head into the midterm elections? Or will we have high gas prices heading into November? I want to play the cut, and then I want to get Mark and Medford's reaction, all of your reaction. This is what Trump told Maria. Roll cut 8A, Mike. Okay, so basically he said we had a great economy, the greatest economy. He had to take what he calls a side trip to Iran because he said, look, I couldn't let them have a nuclear weapon. And then she asked, well, look, the price of oil and gas, will it be lower by the midterms? And this is what Trump said. I hope so. I think so. Maybe the same or maybe a little bit higher. We have it now, Mike? Okay. Roll cut 8A, Mike.
Greatest economy ever. Everything's going along. And I say, I'm sorry. I tell my economic advisors, I say, I'm sorry, fellas. We're in great shape. We have to go and take a little journey down to Iran, and we have to stop them from having a nuclear weapon. They all said, we agree.
So do you believe the price of oil and gas will be lower before the midterm elections?
I hope so. I mean, I think so. It could be, or the same, or maybe a little bit higher, but it should be around the same. I think this won't be that much longer.
So now notice, obviously he's cautiously optimistic, but look, you don't know, right? The mullahs are fanatics. They can take a lot of pain. I mean, that's just how they are. And so this thing could drag on for a couple more months. And remember, the Ayatollahs launched drone and missile attacks against Kuwait and Saudi Arabia and Qatar, damaging their oil infrastructure, which is going to take months to fix. So to get the oil out of the Persian Gulf, we're not going to be at what we were before the war started for a long time, at least through the summer, even if things end fairly quickly. So a lot of people are saying oil and gas prices, they may still be high heading into the midterms. The Democrats are going to use that against Trump, and politically it could hurt him. Could. I underline the word could. Is it worth it? Mark in Medford, what say you?
Jeff, let's look at it this way. When Biden was president, gas went up to $5, $6, $7 in some places. Okay? Well, that's because look at the reasons why it went up to $5, $6, $7 in some places. He stopped everything. He blocked pipelines. He shut them down. We weren't able to drill for oil. We weren't able to sell any oil. We weren't even able to get oil for ourselves. But when Trump became president, Jeff, now gas is still under $4. It's not as high as Joe Biden. And I think, I mean, I don't know if I'm correct, but I think by all these countries now coming here, buying oil at, say, 80, 90, $100 a barrel, we can rake in the money where we can sell it here domestically for 40, 50, $60 a barrel, and then that will make the gas prices come down. So I say, yeah, you know what? We paid for 4 years, $5, $6, $7. I think I could go a few more months. We're paying $3.50, $4. I think it's worth it in the long run, and they'll be thanking Trump up, down, sideways, and any way you could possibly imagine, Jeff. You'll see.
Mark, as always, thank you very much for that call. Mark says, A, he's willing to, pay the higher prices, and B, he believes in the end it will all work out. Do you agree? 617-266-6868. Is it Carlotta? Carlotta in Rhode Island. Thanks for holding, Carlotta, and welcome.
Morning. I have two things to say.
Yes.
I can sum up what Mark just said. In business, they say volume, volume, volume. So that's he nailed it. And the other thing I want to say is that everyone always says Trump does things by the seat of his pants, whatever. Well, in that New York Times article last week, they went around the table, and General Kane brought up the fact that the Iranians might block the Strait of Hormuz. And Trump just waved him aside. So it wasn't something that didn't come up, for which they're all being criticized. Everyone say, oh, nobody thought of that. They did think of it. But Trump knew it was just another humiliation he would have to impose upon the Iranians by having them block the strait, and he would take it away from them. So I am concerned about the loss of life, our young people. That's the only thing that concerns me, not the price of gas, because like Mark said, we'll be selling so much oil that the price will come down. And I think that all the things we worry about, they flash through Trump's mind, and he knows it's just another hurdle he'll have to cover. And don't ever forget, at the convention, at the Republican convention in 2016, when he was nominated by the party, his sons were interviewed, and they looked at the interviewer, I forget who it was, and the interviewer said, who thought this was possible? And Donald Trump said, wait a minute. My father doesn't start until something is impossible. That's his starting point.
Interesting. Well, look, Carlotta, it's a very dramatic turn of events. I think it stunned the IRGC, the mullahs in Iran. I don't think they didn't see this coming, because they calculated that Trump, because remember, initially he was allowing Iran to sell their oil because he wanted to keep oil prices low. Even allowed the Russians to sell their so-called sanctioned oil. So they thought, well, no, they need the oil. You know, Trump needs the oil. The world markets need the oil. Asia, Europe, they all need the oil. And Trump now said, okay, fine. Let the price of oil go even higher. Let the price of gas go even higher. I don't care. I'm willing to take the short-term pain. Let it go up to $5 a gallon. Well, I don't care. Let it go up to $6 a gallon even. You know, in other words, for the short term, I'm willing to take the hit, the political hit, because I believe in the end, if I cut off their oil, then the mullahs have absolutely nothing. And I think he also made another very smart strategic decision. Why should they be the exempt? Why should the Iranians be the regime now? Why should the Iranian regime be exempt from the costs that they're imposing upon the rest of the world? They're the ones choking off all that oil, the oil tankers coming in from the Persian Gulf and preventing it from going to the world. So the world is suffering because of this, primarily Asia and Europe, but prices are going up, and no question. I mean, I said it literally was $3.99 if you want to be exact. $3.99 and what is it, 9/10 of a cent. Okay, so I went to my local gas station. It was, basically $4. It's not quibble over 1/10 of a penny. So it was $4 a gallon. I'm not the end of the world. I'm not going to die. But, it's gone up. No question it's gone up. Before the war, it was like $2.79. Even $2.69. So it's gone up. No question. But Trump is saying, no, look, they shouldn't be exempt from what they're doing to the rest of the world. Let them feel the pain as well. And Carlotta, the other thing now that's coming out is that Trump now may resume military strikes on a more limited basis. I don't think you're going to see the kind of bombardment that we saw before the ceasefire. But I think now he's saying, you know what? Let's keep going after their key military targets. Let's keep the pressure on this regime, and eventually they'll crack. So we shall see. Fingers crossed. Carlotta, thank you very much for that call. I really appreciate it. 617-266-6868. Trump now imposes a strict, crippling blockade on every single Iranian port. Nothing can come in. Nothing can come out. Good move, bad move, and he's now moved into the Strait of Hormuz. There are ships there, two war destroyers, two destroyers have now gone in. Minesweepers are now operating as we speak, slowly demining the Strait of Hormuz. Trump now says we're going to clear it ourselves, even if it means potentially being attacked and sailors being killed. If the world won't do it, we will. 617-266-6868. Do you support this move on the part of the president? Let me just play one very quick cut. This is President Trump saying they overplayed their hand in Pakistan. The Ayatollahs did, the Iranian negotiating team. They didn't have the cards, but they thought they had the cards. And he said, look, to be fair, they had one card. And that was the mines they put in the Strait of Hormuz and the fact that they had shut it down, at least temporarily. Well, I'm going to take that card off the table. Roll cut 7A, Mike.
Started off weak. They came in like they had the cards, but they don't have the cards. Their army, their whole military is obliterated. The whole place is obliterated. And, as you know, levels of leaders are gone. They're literally gone. Khomeini's gone. The whole thing is gone. The whole place is gone. They have one thing that they can do. They can say, well, gee, we're going to put a mine someplace just a mine. We'll drop one mine, 2 mines, 10 mines. And that will, if you have a ship that costs $1 billion, you'll say, well, I'd prefer not getting whacked by a mine, losing my ship or damaging it badly, at least. And so that's a little bit of a thing that they can do. That it's military might and military power don't do it, but, it's extortion. and they're extorting the world.
And Trump said he's not going to allow them to extort the world. Even in Pakistan, JD told them right to their face, you're not going to have a tolling system. You guys think you want a tolling system. We are not going to allow you to have a tolling system, period. So no matter what, you are not going to be able to charge a fee for ships to go through the Strait of Hormuz. It's an international waterway, and the international law states if it's an international waterway, it must have free and open passage. So basically now Trump is he's looking now to dismantle the mullahs and knock out the last pillar that they have left. Agree, disagree, 617-266-6868. Mel in Saratoga. Thanks for holding, Mel, and welcome.
Thank you, Paul. And I'm in full favor of this blockade. These mullahs, they think they're the only ones on the face of the earth who play hardball and intimidate and bully people around. President Trump is doing the right thing. I have the question that I do have, though, Jeff, is we took Maduro out of Venezuela. When are we going to see the reward of that action from the oil supply that they generate or can generate, because they haven't generated anything that came this way in decades, in years anyhow. I think that, we choked them off over there in Iran, but we still have a supply that we could depend upon in this country for this country's benefit from Venezuela. Until the actions over in Iran are taken care of. I'm just, that's my question. I mean, here we right in our back door, our backyard, we got Venezuela, and we don't. I'm hoping that we can start, extracting oil from that country, and also helping their economy also down there with the people that have been brutalized by this communist dictator that we had to go and arrest and remove. But as a backup, there's an oil supply there while we're over there taking care of what's going on over there in the Middle East.
Well, no, that's a great point. And Trump's been saying that as well in private, a little bit in public, but mostly in private, where he says, look, we're cranking up the oil production in Venezuela. So that's because there's a lot of demand now, because there's no Saudi oil getting out, or Kuwaiti oil, or, Iraqi oil, or UAE oil. I mean, none of that is getting out. And so he says there's a shortage and there's a huge demand. So he says we're cranking up Venezuelan oil to offset, what the Saudis aren't able to get out through the Persian Gulf and through the Strait. And so that's going to help with prices. Also, it's going to help us because now the Chinese aren't able to buy discounted oil anymore from both Venezuela, and the big one was Iran. Iran, 80% of the discounted oil that China bought was from Iran. 20% was from Venezuela. So now China is paying through the nose, full price for oil, which they weren't paying for before. So the Chinese communists are not happy. Believe me, they're not happy. The problem is now they need Iran's oil. They're dependent on Iran's oil. So what Trump is also banking on is that Xi Jinping is going to pick up the phone and tell the Ayatollahs, guys, it's over. I'm sorry, it's over. You lost. Sign this freaking peace deal and reopen the Strait of Hormuz because, we need the oil from Qatar. We need your oil, the Iranian oil, and we need Saudi oil. Now, the risk is, Trump thinks it's not going to happen, but the risk is that the Chinese say, now you're blockading our oil, meaning the oil we get from Iran, and you're not going to do that, and we're going to break your blockade. Now, that's always a risk. It doesn't look like the Chinese are going to do that, thank the Lord. And I think it's the opposite. I think the Chinese are going to say, look, we need your oil. Trump is willing to lift sanctions so you can sell your oil fully on the international market. And we need Qatari oil and Saudi oil and the Persian Gulf nations. So just unblock the strait, end the war. America will end their blockade, and we can get oil coming into our country again. So Trump now is trying to use maximum leverage and pressure to crack the Ayatollahs. But I got to tell you, Mel, I don't know whether to admire him or pity him. I really don't. I mean, personally, I hate him. You know my feelings about him. But they just won't relent. I mean, you look at state media and they're itching for a fight. They want to attack our ships. They want to launch missiles. They want to launch drone attacks. It's Allah, 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 Allah. I'm telling you, that's all it is. Allah, 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 Allah. So, okay, you want to keep going Allah, Allah, Allah? Okay. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. Now, what they don't realize is that there's a certain point where you just keep losing and losing and losing, and you're getting so degraded militarily and now economically, the regime may just crumble. It just may dissolve. I mean, their leadership has already been badly damaged. How much more of this can you take? And if they can't pay their military, and if they can't pay government salaries, if there's no oil revenue coming in, they're in trouble. I mean, fanaticism can only go so far. Mel, thank you very, very much for that call. I really appreciate it. 617-266-6868 is the number. Bob in Marblehead. Thanks for holding, Bob, and welcome.
And all I have to say is go Navy, damn the torpedoes, all ahead full. These guys can do it. I'd even volunteer to go back to the Navy for another 30 years without pay, just to be aboard one of those ships. But anyway, and the only other comment I have, Teddy Roosevelt must be smiling topside at this whole scene. Don't forget, we had to fight off the Barbary pirates doing the same thing back in the early 19th century. I'm sure you know about that.
Yeah, that was Thomas Jefferson. Yes, you're right.
Yeah, yeah. So history is kind of repeating itself, and you just don't let bullies have the last word. And bravo Zulu to the president, commander-in-chief. He's doing the right thing. It's really the only thing that he can do, and he may be sacrificing the midterms, but he's essentially saving the country and probably saving the world, getting those people squared away for sure. Anyway, that's all I have to say, and
Bob, thank you. Have a nice day, and thank you for your service. I love all the vets, but you Navy guys do not get the credit you deserve. I'm telling you that right now. Look, we have the finest Navy in the world. We have the finest military in the world. There's no question. But we have the finest, most powerful Navy in the world. Okay, it is now slowly, not there yet, but we're getting there, becoming an economic war of attrition. That's what this blockade now truly means, which will go into effect, as I said, 10 o'clock this morning, our time, across the entire Strait of Hormuz. It's not an Iranian blockade. It will be us, the United States, an American blockade. There will be some other countries joining us. Trump is not telling us which countries they are, but it will be multinational. How multinational, we'll see, but some other countries have agreed to help us. All ships going to and from Iranian ports will be blockaded by the United States. So the big one is the Iranians will not be able to sell a drop of oil on the international market. Now, what's going to happen, And this, I mean, this is what the world is bracing for. That's why this is, I think, brutally effective, but it is high risk. Already, as I speak to you now, oil markets, as you know, there's been a critical shortage of supply. Prices have gone through the roof. In Asia in particular, they are already, factories are curbing, scaling back production to save on energy costs. So the economies are literally slowing down. They're just stopping production or only doing it 2 or 3 days a week. So the economies there are slowing down because they don't have any more fuel. And the price has gone sky high. Some Asian countries are now rationing fuel. So, you know, we had in the 70s those long lines and you're only allowed to whatever, $5 or $10 a gallon. Sorry, $10 a tank or $5 a tank. That's what's happening now in many Asian countries. In fact, it is getting so bad that now airports in Asia and now even in Europe are running out of jet fuel. So that means planes can't land or fly. So cumulatively, this is now potentially, it could trigger a global recession. In particular, it will hit Europe and Asia very, very hard. You now cut off even Iranian oil to the world's supply. And that's going to lead to even more shortages, which means even more higher prices, which means even the potential for even a greater global economic slowdown and recession. So the risk that Trump is taking is that it could lead to much higher prices here, a global recession which will affect the economy here, and Trump could have a very weak economy heading into the midterms. And in particular, and this is why Susie Wiles is yelling gas prices, gas prices, gas prices every chance she gets. She says, we promised the American people they would have low gas, low energy costs, low gas. What we're giving them, whether it's intentional or not, with the war, is high gas and high energy costs. And if we're not going to get it down by November, then she believes that the Democrats will win and win big. And it will cost the president, the House, and maybe even the Senate. And so that's why this is very high risk on the part of Trump, because we don't know. The mullahs are very stubborn. They're fanatical. They will fight to the bitter end. And who knows how long, how much pain they're willing to withstand. And so now it's becoming almost a war of attrition. We starve the Iranians. The Iranians will do everything possible to keep the global economy and energy prices as high as possible to hurt and damage us so Trump loses the midterms. So my question to you, is it worth it? Do you fear? Militarily, it's a spectacular maneuver. Look, if he didn't have the midterms to worry about, Iran's goose is cooked. There's no question. They cannot survive without oil revenue. So, a month, 2 months, 3 months, whatever it is, they're going to have to submit and, it's over. But does Trump have 2-3 more months? Because it takes time to get oil prices down. They don't just come down overnight. So is it worth it? And do you fear we may defeat Iran but lose to the Democrats in November? And ultimately, is it worth it? Now, just very, very quickly, because you need to be aware of every single angle, and then I promise I'm going to go back to the phone lines. The Iranians also say they're going to unleash their proxies. And we know about Hamas, we know about Hezbollah, but the Houthis now may play a role because they're going to attack shipping in the Red Sea. And they're thinking in particular of hitting a critical choke point in the Red Sea. So that means now oil shipping won't even be able to go through the Red Sea. If they pull that off, that's going to lead to oil prices going even higher. Okay, I want to ask all of you. It is the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's. Mario's Quality Roofing, Siding, and Windows. Is a U.S. blockade of the Strait of Hormuz worth it if it raises gas prices at home? Trump says, get ready. Prices will go up some more because now Iranian oil is now going to be completely blockaded as well. So he says, yes, prices will go up. He believes eventually, of course, they will come down when the war is over. But he says in the short term, they will go up. And when asked by Maria Bartiromo, well, will they be down by the midterms? He says, I hope so. I think so. But he can't give a guarantee. So Trump may be heading into the midterms with high energy and gas prices. And so my question to you, is a U.S. blockade of the Strait of Hormuz worth it if it raises gas prices at home? A, yes. B, no. I want to hear from you. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, KUHN is in national ER. And, of course, you can vote via X. And, man, was I active on X last night. My handle there, all one word, at the Kuhner Report, at the Kuhner Report, KUHNER. Russ in Boston. Thanks for holding, Russ, and welcome.
A lot to say this morning. I agree with President Trump. We're forced to do this thanks to the coward European leaders. We are forced to secure the strait. We must teach the Europeans a lesson, finally reinforce all of our bases in Europe, and at the same time remove all combat troops out of Europe. Now, Article 5 is subject to the President of the United States approval, not automatic Article 5. They must learn that and learn the lesson very hard. Take Greenland, pay for it at a fair price. I have had enough with the enemy within Democratic Party and their comrades in the left-stream media. Put the Democratic Party back in power, death to America. The globalists will control all aspects of our life. And those of you that are still supporting the Democrats, when the hell are you going to learn that? Now, Jeff, I'm going to ask you a question as a practicing fellow Roman Catholic. After Pope Leo made a stupid statement, Pope Leo said, God rejects the prayers of leaders who wage war. Now, the question again, Jeff, is this. Now that Pope Francis stacked the deck with liberal cardinals, will we ever see popes like St. John Paul or Pope Benedict in the 21st century again?
I don't think so. It breaks my heart to say that to you, Russ, but I don't think so. And I have to tell you, I've been tweeting, I guess Xing, I guess is how you call it now. But anyway, I've been on X, and I've been talking about the Pope, and he's been waging a crusade against Donald Trump. Now, he doesn't use his name, but we all know he's talking about Trump. And he met with David Axelrod. This was last week. I mentioned it on X, privately for a very long meeting. In fact, he missed other meetings or was late for other meetings, to be more accurate, because it went on so long. And I said, what's he doing, meeting with David Axelrod? This is Obama's right-hand man. This is literally his top advisor. And they're meeting in private? What are they discussing? On abortion? Axelrod is radically pro-abortion. He's radically anti-family. Everything he pushes is anathema to the Catholic Church. So why, A, why is the Pope giving him an audience, and B, a private meeting? And I said, it's obvious. Pope Leo XIV is tied to the Chicago political machine of Obama. And they are coordinating their globalist attacks on Trump. And so you see the Pope going on about how the Israeli-U.S. war is immoral, it is unjust, according to the Pope. That then he went on in his recent homily saying that basically, that this is a form of idolatry, worship of the self, this sense of godlike omnipotence. He went as far as he could go to call the president a war criminal, without, of course, using the president's name, and saying that the Lord doesn't answer his prayers because his hands are covered in blood. Now, President Trump responded yesterday. It's everywhere now. It's one of the biggest stories in the world. Trump blasted Pope Leo on Truth Social. And he said he was weak on crime, that he said nothing when Venezuela flooded our country with murderers, gangbangers, killers, drug dealers, and that the Pope has no business telling him that he can't stop Iran from acquiring a nuclear weapon. That the Pope is acting like a politician, and he should be, focusing on theology. And he says, I want you to be a great Pope, but obviously you're acting more like a Democrat politician than you are an actual Pope. And so now you have the Vatican openly at odds with the President of the United States. And I got to say this, Russ, and I say this as a very devout Roman Catholic. When I go to Mass for my soul, to hear the truth, the way I see it, to contemplate good, evil, right, wrong, the sacrifice of Jesus that he made for all of us on the cross. I'm tired of hearing lectures about illegal aliens and about open borders and constant lectures about how bad and evil Donald Trump is. And so Pope Leo is just picking up where Pope Francis left off. This is the Obama of the Catholic Church. And I got to tell you, really, in all honesty, stick to church affairs. The Pope didn't condemn the mullahs when they slaughtered 40,000 unarmed protesters. He didn't criticize them. He didn't call them war criminals. He didn't say that they were killing and shedding innocent blood and their hands are full of blood. He was silent. On the issue of Iranians being murdered by the regime, he says nothing. On the issue of the drug cartels, nothing. On the issue of Americans being slaughtered here at home due to illegal aliens, he says nothing. So, I'm sorry. Leave politics out of the pulpit. I'm tired of it. And, I don't know how many years now I've been going to church where I'm like, can I just hear one homily once about the evils of abortion? What, like just once? Just once. We're talking about over 60 million dead babies, unborn babies. And the Catholic Church remains silent. But to go ahead and bash Donald Trump, that they have time for. I'm tired of it. So now Trump has called out Pope Leo XIV, and now the Vatican is siding with the Democrats and with the globalists against the president. And and Trump is right. It's bad for the Catholic Church. It's bad for the papacy. It's bad for the Pope. But it's ultimately bad for the church. Final word to you. Am I wrong, Russ?
With you 100%. And let me add this to it, okay? He was invited to the United States on the 4th of July, okay? Instead of coming to the United States, you know where he's going? He's going to Lampedusa. Anyone that don't know where Lampedusa is, it's part of Sicily. It's a small island that's the closest point to Europe as far as Italy is concerned. That's where he's going on the 4th, okay? just to insult the United States about this foolishness about illegal aliens. Oh, seriously, remember, why are there walls in the Pope, in the Vatican? Why is the Swiss Guard going? Will he let illegal aliens storm the walls of the Vatican? No, they'll get shot by the Swiss Guard. What, are you kidding me?
Well, they're not allowed to come in. You're right. They have 40-foot walls. He condemns Trump for building a wall, but they have 40-foot walls. And there's not one illegal alien allowed into the Vatican. So, I mean, I'm sorry. The Pope on this is a hypocrite. And this is the problem, Russ. They get billions of dollars from NGOs. The Catholic Church does. Other churches as well. It's not just the Catholics. The Lutherans do it. Others do it, okay? But I'm talking about the Catholic Church now. I'm talking about the Catholic Church now. They're getting billions with a B from NGOs to resettle illegal aliens and migrants across the United States, Canada, and Europe. So I'm sorry, they have a financial conflict of interest. You have a financial incentive to be for open borders and illegals. And that to me is corrupting. Of course it's corrupting. Okay, a couple lines are open if you want to jump on. 617-266-6868. Text line 70470. 70470. This is from 603. Jeff, regarding Trump's decision now to impose a blockade on all Iranian ports. Good move? Bad move? Question mark? No. Genius move. Here's why. Trump has now effectively cornered the world market on oil in favor of the United States. If you watch the sites that monitor ship traffic, you will see scores and scores of international oil tankers now making a beeline for the U.S. coastline. Many of the ships that were headed for the Strait of Hormuz have literally made a U-turn out in the middle of the ocean and are now en route to the Gulf of America, where the oil refineries in Texas and Louisiana, who have the sweetest crude on earth, are open for business, baby. Additionally, Venezuela is quietly upping its oil production for our use, and our ally, Saudi Arabia, has now completed and opened its east to west pipeline to get its oil over to its ports on the Red Sea, thereby avoiding the Hormuz Strait altogether. Considering the fact that China gets roughly 50% of all its oil at a discounted rate directly from Iran through the Strait, I'd have to say that this is a beautiful master stroke by our commander-in-chief. Again, Jeff, I say genius move. It's 3D chess. I agree with you. It's a really brilliant military maneuver on the part of Trump. There's no question. He outmaneuvered, he outfoxed the mullahs, and now he's turned their blockade literally now against them. And the only question now, and I think Trump is going to hold out. Trump is, if it takes a month, 2 months, whatever it takes, but I think now he's going to crack them. He's going to bring them to their knees economically and force them to the negotiating table as our Navy clears the Strait of Hormuz. And once that happens, it's game, set, match. Now, very quickly, I want to ask all of you. It does appear that oil prices are going to remain high for the foreseeable future. And as I mentioned the last, segment or the segment before that, Trump is willing, again, it's high risk. Trump is now conceding prices may not go down or go down very much by the time we roll into the midterm elections in November. So politically, he will be vulnerable to a Democrat attack on affordability, on not getting gas prices down, and they will demagogue this issue and maybe even use it to win in November. Are you concerned? And ultimately, is it worth the political price? 617-266-6868. Lines are on fire. Vince in Long Island. Thanks for holding, Vince, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. Doing happy Divine Mercy Sunday.
Happy Divine Mercy Sunday, my friend.
It's a Monday, but anyhow, this Pope is not behaving like a Pope at all. To me, a Pope was John Paul II. That was a Pope. I think there's been a coup in the church since whatever happened to Benedict. I still don't know. You know, he just disappeared from the scene. Pope's retiring. That's unheard of. But anyhow, the other thing I was going to say is that we're really a bunch of whining weasels. We really need to fight wars as a country, not just send out a few brave soldiers to maim themselves, lose everything for the country, while the rest of us sit back and watch movies and eat popcorn. We should go to war as a country, and a little pain for everybody is what's needed. Paying a little bit more for gas and all that stuff is no big deal to me at all. I don't care if gas was $7 a gallon. I know it all flows through to the economy, and you might have a recessionary period, but all these liberals in all these blue states, they have no problem in tolls left and right, like in Manhattan, for instance. $9 a day just to travel into Manhattan, congestion pricing. That's $2,400 a year. Never remove those tolls or anything like that. These libs love taxes and everything, and these blue states keep having people vote them in. So obviously, the consequence of high prices is not the problem here. It's just a tool that the liberals are using against Trump. But if you take, who said never let a good crisis go to waste? There's a good opportunity to double up on oil production, start building nuclear power plants that we need. When a business first starts in business, the first 2 or 3 years, there's no money to be had. There's only losses. So we can't take six months to crush an enemy's economy. Well, we have to pay some of the price, but it's not going to destroy us. But that's the alternative to going in there and leveling the country completely, because we're humanitarians. We can't do that. So at least we got to do it economically. There's no other way. We can't give up the fight, because if we do what Biden did in Afghanistan, it's all over. If you cut and run like weasels, that's not going to look good to Russia and the Chinese, they're looking to expand throughout the whole area. And also, Europe needs to suffer. We've been paying the price for Europe for 50, 60 years. We lose our soldiers. We pay the price for economic defense of the country. Where's their cost? Let them pay $12 a gallon. Maybe they want to do the war afterwards, And after all, if Trump is a king, what do we care about the midterms? He'll just dissolve Parliament. No big deal.
That's funny, Vince. That is very, very funny. Vince, let me make 2 very quick points, and then I want to come back to you. By the way, you're making excellent points. Number one, what's starting to happen, this is a huge development that it's going to take a couple years. It's not relevant for this current crisis, but the Saudis have had enough. The Persian Gulf countries have had enough. And so what they have now done is they have cut a deal with Israel. All of this, by the way, sort of overseen by Trump. They're going to create a new gas pipeline. It's going to be a mother pipeline, much bigger than the current east-west pipeline they currently have. Think of it like the Keystone XL, but for the Middle East. And so the Gulf nations are going to have all of their oil go through this mother pipeline that is going to go with Israel all the way to the Mediterranean. Now, what that means is it's going to bypass the Strait of Hormuz completely. So in the next couple of years, when this pipeline is completed, once that's done, the Strait of Hormuz loses its geopolitical strategic importance forever. Then who cares? The Iranians can block it, not block it, it doesn't matter, because oil will no longer be going through oil tankers through the Strait of Hormuz into the Persian Gulf. It's all going to be going through this massive pipeline. And unlike here, where it takes 20 years to get a pipeline built, because the environmentalists have to do study after study after study. There, the environmentalists, it's a year, 18 months, that's it. And then boom, the pipeline gets built. So what I'm saying is this Iran is playing, yes, it's playing a card in the Strait of Hormuz, but this is their last hurrah. In a couple of years, they won't be able to play that card. So that's going to be huge for us, for the region, for the price of oil globally. So eventually the Strait of Hormuz will become irrelevant. Now, to your second very important point. Look, I hear you, Vince. I really do. Let me be brutally honest with you, okay? I will pay $4. I'll pay $5. I'll pay $6. I'll pay $7 a gallon. If that's what it takes to break the back of the mullahs, Jeff Kuhner will pay and pay with a smile. But there is an argument to be made. You have to, and I'll give it to you right now. This is what Mike told me last week. Now, Mike is like most Americans. For him, $5, $6, $7 a gallon, that's no joke. Mike's a young guy. He's got a lot of bills. He's not making a fortune at this job. He's living paycheck to paycheck like many Americans are. His back is up against the wall. Trump promised him a golden age. And Mike took him at his word. And Mike said to me last week, he said, Jeff, where's the golden age? I'm still waiting for the golden age. I hated Biden. I hated what he did to our country, what he did to, as Mike said, to me personally. He killed me financially. Inflation skyrocketed. Gas went through the roof. Everything, energy, everything went through the roof. Food, groceries. Trump said he was going to fix all this. But then he tells us we got to do the tariffs. Wait. Okay, I wait. Finally, gas starts to come down. Finally, things start getting a little bit better. And now we got to go back to war. We go to war with Iran. And now we're going all the way maybe towards the midterms, where I'm going to be looking at $5, $6, $7 a gallon gas, higher inflation. The inflation report, what was it last week for the month of March? 3.3%. So inflation now is going back up near, not at, but near levels it was under Biden. So Mike's argument, and I'm telling you, a lot of the audience, because I get their emails, are saying, Jeff, where's the golden age? Why are we always told we have to suffer? Always wait. There's always a reason. We don't want to wait anymore. We want inflation down. We want affordability down. We want gas and energy down. We need relief. Economically, our backs are against the wall. What say you to that argument?
I say that one of the options you have is to give one of those wonderful rebate checks that are specifically designated towards gasoline consumption. Give like credit card uses where you can only use it for gas, not for people to go and party with like they did with the last rebate checks. So that's one of the options. The other option is, so you're not going to vote for Trump and you're going to vote for communists who will have gas at $10 a gallon a couple of years from now. That's your other choice? What sense does that make?
So basically you're saying Trump's the only game in town and, eventually gas will come back down and just stay patient, correct?
Absolutely. I mean, when you go to the gym and work out, before you get that great body, it takes 6 months, don't you think? You go to the gym and...
Yeah, well, me, it's more like 6 years, but let that go, Vince.
But there has to be a starting point.
Vince, otherwise you stay fat like me forever. No, I hear you. You look like me, and you don't want to look like me. Vince, thank you very, very much for that call. 617-266-6868. But look, I just want to be fair. It's not just Mike. I'm using Mike as an example, but, there are many in the audience who I get so many emails and text messages, and you wouldn't believe it, on Messenger, saying, look, Jeff, I love Trump. I voted for Trump, but we suffered so much under Biden. We really are living hand to mouth. We can barely pay our bills. We're barely, we're just treading water. And now inflation is starting to come back because of the war. Gas is going back up. Energy is going back up. Everything is starting to get higher again, because if gas and energy go up, then everything else goes up. And they're like, we were hoping for relief on day one. We needed relief on day one. And where's the golden age? We're waiting for the golden age. And many are saying they're just running out of patience. Now, they're not going to vote Democrat. No one says to me, hey, I'm voting Democrat. They're just saying, I'm exhausted. I'm tapped out. Like, please, I need help. And many of them are saying Trump has forgotten us. That they feel that he needs to focus on domestic affairs because they're hurting. And so my question to you is, do you agree? And it's not that they're going to vote Democrat in the midterms. They're just not going to vote. And if they stay home, Trump loses. And I'm telling you, if he loses and the Democrats sweep back to power, we are in big, big, big trouble. 617-266-6868. Now you know all the sides. I mean, now you really know both sides of the story. Mark is it Bedford or Medford? Bedford? Okay. Mark in Bedford. Thanks for holding, Mark, and welcome.
Hey, good morning. I
Hi,
have
Mark.
a question.
Yes.
There was something called OPEC. Is that where all the oil pricing is coming from?
Yeah, but I mean, yes, but their dominance is not what it once was.
Right, because I remember it being, as far as we're concerned, a cartel.
Oh, it was huge. Yeah, it was a huge cartel, but we busted that. We broke that wide open with fracking here. Once we became the number one oil and gas producer in the world, Mark, OPEC's influence collapsed.
Need something, an economy that puts oil pricing in the right range, and it's all based off of North America.
Oh, I agree. Or at least the Western Hemisphere. And look, Venezuela has a lot of oil and gas. By the way, Canada is one of the top oil and gas producers in the world. Now, it's a bit harder to extract. It's a bit like Venezuelan oil. They have so much of it. Look, to make it as plainly and easy as possible, the reason why Persian Gulf oil is considered so lucrative, it's easy oil. It's not dirty or heavy oil. In other words, you don't have to refine it too much, right? It just comes out of the ground and you refine it quickly and then boom, you can export it. Venezuelan oil, Canadian oil, it's great oil. There's so much of it, but it's a little heavier, a little dirtier, as they say, meaning you have to refine it a few times. So it's a little more expensive. You got to refine it, but there's so much of it. And you combine our oil and natural gas reserves with Canada's and then throw in Venezuela's. We're an energy powerhouse like the world has never seen. In fact, to be honest, United States, Canada, and Venezuela, we produce so much oil, there's three countries together, forget North America, the whole Western Hemisphere, self-sufficient. I mean, literally, we can just take care of ourselves and not worry about gas or oil. Like we're swimming in the stuff. So what happens in the Middle East, we don't care. Whatever. In other parts of the world, it won't affect us whatsoever. So, and that's why Trump, if you notice, not just with the Venezuela move, but with Greenland in terms of national security, the Panama Canal kicking China out, That's what Trump is now basically trying to create, a Western Hemisphere, a North American Western Hemisphere fortress for the United States. So we become self-sufficient and we become protected, have a kind of a military posture and an economic posture where we don't have to rely on China, we don't have to rely on Asia or the Middle East or Europe or any other continent except here and in our own backyard. A final word to you, Mark.
Okay, so I understand that, and I understand we can be a powerful unit, but we're not going in that direction yet. We're still at the whims of this global pricing market. And I know we don't produce enough for ourselves yet. And I know Venezuela is taking a little time to get ready. And of course, Canada's playing games. But it seems like we should be able to start making the skeleton form of our structure and get prices down to $80 to $90 a barrel minimum. I mean, it should be lower, but we can go there first. That's all I'm saying. I mean, I know there's different kinds of oils and you need different oils for different things and so forth, but that's just my 2 cents worth.
Well, Mark, before the war, we were at $65 a barrel, and we were heading south. We were going eventually into $50 a barrel territory. And that's where Trump wanted it to be. $50, $45 a barrel. That's when you start talking about $1.89 a gallon. And that's just not saving you money when you pump up at the tank, but that saves money across the board. Your energy costs go down, your heating costs go down, your electricity goes down, your transportation costs go down. I mean, everything starts to go down. When you have gas under $2 a gallon, that really benefits the middle and the working class. Food goes down, groceries go down. So that's where Trump ultimately wanted to take us. Okay, let me ask all of you. Trump now goes, really in some ways, for the economic kill shot. He now wants to cripple and strangle Iran's economy, in particular its oil economy. He's imposing a massive crippling blockade. He's blockading, as I said, the blockaders. The Strait of Hormuz, every Iranian port, any ship coming or going from an Iranian port will now be stopped and interdicted by the U.S. Navy. Trump says the Ayatollahs will no longer get a penny in oil revenue. 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree. John in Lowell. Thanks for holding, John, and welcome.
Jeff, I disagreed with this whole war at the very beginning. And it's not that it didn't have to be done. It's how they went about it. I'm not going to Monday morning quarterback it. All I have to say is I will be damned if I speak bad against my country and my president during a time of war. Jeff, whatever happened? What happened to us, really? Look what our forefathers gave up. They were hunted like dogs, Jeff. The greatest generation, all those lost. Not just the men, the women, going to the factories, building the war machine, sticking together. Jeff, we might win this, but it makes it a lot harder when we're divided, doesn't it? Jeff, I'm so broke I can't even pay attention, Jeff. I drive a 1994 Suburban. It's a beast. You know what? Whatever it takes, kid, at this point. Because we're family, and that's what we've forgotten, Jeff. We're divided, and that's the only way they're going to win. Jeff, they're animals. They have nothing. They have nothing over there. And when you have nothing to lose.
That's a very good point. That's a really good point. John, I've got to ask you, the gas prices, they're high, obviously, and they're going to get higher, and they may be high heading into the midterms. Is Trump making a huge political mistake? Militarily, there's no question we have destroyed Iran. There's no question. Militarily, we've won the war. Okay, now we got to finish out the endgame, but militarily, I've never seen anything like this. We have taken this country and shattered it militarily. But are we going to pay a steep political price in November, in your view?
I can't read the future, Jeff. I can tell you this. I don't think they're really done with us yet, Jeff. You mentioned the proxies earlier over there. Sleeper cells here, Jeff. And we are weak, Jeff. We are spoiled, rotten, weak. Not individually, but collectively in a way. Let's face it. Big deal. You can't go to the movies. You can't take your vacation. You can't run your speedboat this year because you can't afford it. Tough friggin' crap. No, Jeff, I don't see a win just yet. Not yet. Not until it is over. And, Jeff, I'm generally a pessimist. An optimist. I really am. I don't see this going easy, Jeff.
Interesting. Well, I got to say, they have nothing to lose. You're truly right about that. And, just to piggyback off of what you're saying, John, because I think it's such a good insight. I think that's why the 72 virgins, I'm being serious, the harem, the 72 virgins, you should see these mullahs when they, give their sermons. It's disgusting to us. It's vile, it's misogynistic, it's sexist. But think about it, to someone living in a hut or in a cave, you offer them that, they're like, wow. And all I got to do is be a martyr for Islam? Wow. It gives them something to live for, something to die for, something to hope for. And, you're right. They don't have much to lose. And that's why they're willing to take so much pain and punishment. John, great call. 617-266-6868. Okay, John says he wants us to win, obviously, but he says don't count the mullahs out. They have nothing to live for. These are hard men, and they're going to fight a war of attrition, and it's not going to go easy with them. Do you agree? 617-266-6868. Lisa in Florida. Thanks for holding, Lisa, and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. My subject is fraud. Brandon Johnson has 350 police security force. Ro Khanna is worth $140 million. These people are kings, and that is why half of our waste of money isn't just looking at a pointer facing towards gas and oil. My father was in World War II. My mom was in the USO. My grandfather used to take a tea bag and a hard-boiled egg and go and have a lunch. I understand that it's the topic of oil, but I see cars picking up children, and they leave the air conditioner on, and they have a car for half an hour running, and I see trucks.
Lisa, can you do me a favor? We're up against a break. Okay, Trump now about an hour and a half, and there will be a full blockade now on the entire Strait of Hormuz, affecting Iranian ports. No ships going into an Iranian port will be allowed to enter or exit. It is going to be a crippling blockade to strangle Iran's economy, in particular to choke off the flow of oil. And no oil, no money for the regime. 617-266-6868 is the number. This will lead to higher oil and gas prices around the world, and including here. Trump says this will go on for weeks, maybe a couple months. We shall see. But in the end, he says he is determined to break their economic back. And he says, I am doing all of this for ultimately one goal: to have the mullahs sign a deal in which they will never be able to get a nuclear weapon again. No uranium enrichment of any kind, no long-term ballistic missile program, no nuclear program, and of course, all of that highly enriched uranium that they still have buried under the ground, they must hand it over. As Trump said repeatedly over the weekend, that is my only and number one objective. That's why we're clearing out the Strait of Hormuz with our own minesweepers. That's why the Navy is there. That's why we're implementing the blockade. It is to force Iran to accept a deal that they can never, ever attain or pursue a bomb. Period. Full stop. Agree, disagree, 617-266-6868. Let's go right back to Lisa in Florida. Lisa, you were saying your parents, they were willing to tighten their belt. You talked about family members having a boiled egg and a piece of bread for lunch, and you compare it to sleazy politicians here in the United States who are worth fortunes, most of it through fraud or theft. You look at other people who are dropping their kids off at school. They're leaving the gas running. They're leaving the AC on. There is so much waste in our lives. Please pick up where you left off, Lisa.
Very impressed that you remembered and how quickly I got my points in, Jeff. I just think that we have the pointer with no more Epstein. Now it's gas. I think we have to have some type of loyalty, calm, the way the military is trying to get things done. Somebody went up 7,000 feet trying to get things done. And little things to me, watching Newsmax, seeing a picture of Trump in gray and black, and right on halfway on the other side of the screen, a full-color picture of the opposition. I also see ugly pictures of Trump on Newsmax when they're trying to do a story. I think it's so subversive. It leaks into our whole attitude towards things, and I think that we could do better. I don't think we should all have to sacrifice when we don't have to. We should have fun and everything, but we don't live in 15-minute cities, thankfully, because we do have independence and cars, and that's a wonderful thing. We're not going to be living egg crates. We're going to have our own ability to strive and own. So that's my whole point. I really think that this fraud and the kings they're not speaking up for Trump, the Republicans. It's disgusting.
I agree. No, there's no question. I mean, and Lisa, thank you very much for that call. Look, again, on this whole war, who's had Trump's back? I don't mean whether you're pro-war or anti-war. What I mean is, look, just on basic facts, like reality, like let's deal in reality. Where is the Republican Party? Now, let me tell you the biggest lie that's out there. The biggest lie. The media in this country and frankly around the world are pushing the fiction that the United States is losing the war with Iran. You watch CNN, that's all they're pushing around the clock. The New York Times, the Washington Post, it's front page after front page, how Trump was outmaneuvered by the Ayatollahs. I'm not kidding. That they're playing chess and Trump is playing checkers. You have MS now. They're practically rooting for the mullahs. But what's their line? The war is lost. Trump needs to come home now. What's the line from the Democrats? This is a Waterloo for Trump. A disgrace, a humiliating military defeat. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, what planet are you people on? What, is everybody on drugs? Just objectively, okay? Objectively. Iran's Navy is gone. Its Air Force, gone. Its air defenses, destroyed. Their radar system, shot. Their military has been degraded and dismantled. Their regime leadership decapitated. The Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, the head of their government, gone. Leading members of the IRGC, dead. Their ballistic missile stockpile has been absolutely degraded. 90% of their missile launchers blown up. And this is the part everybody keeps forgetting. Not only has Iran's military been devastated, but the industrial capacity, all those factories, the industrial base to rebuild the missiles, to rebuild the drones, that's also been destroyed. So their ability to rebuild has been set back 10 years. I mean, honestly, if this is not a defeat, then, as I said to Grace, if the media is calling this a victory for Iran, I don't want to know what a defeat looks like. I've never, and by the way, in less than 40 days. And to show you, just from a military point of view, how utterly successful this Operation Epic Fury has been. Now, look, to me, the loss of one American life is too much. Okay, so please don't take this the wrong way. But compared to what they've achieved, 13 dead. It's almost a bloodless campaign. And Operation Epic Fury has destroyed what took the regime 40 years to build. In 40 days, they destroyed what took the mullahs 40 years to build. 40 years. They spent untold billions of dollars to build up their military machine, and Trump smashed it in 40 days. Their nuclear program obliterated. Dust to the wind, gone. They have nothing left. All they have are two things. Blocking the Strait of Hormuz with these mines that they've been dropping and these speedboats that they use to harass shipping and these anti-ship missiles and cheap drones. But that's about it. And they have the enriched uranium still deep in the ground that we want. That's it. I mean, literally, that's it. They have nothing left. They've been defanged. The guts of the military has been ripped out. Hamas has been defeated. Hezbollah is in the process of getting destroyed in Lebanon. All they have are these Houthis in the Red Sea who are threatening to blow up shipping there, but their proxies are falling one by one. Iran has alienated every single neighbor. The entire Sunni Muslim world despises them because these idiots kept attacking them indiscriminately. So from an objective point of view, now you may say it's not worth it. You may say whatever. There's a million reasons. You can be opposed to it. But what I'm saying is it's clearly been a spectacular military victory for the United States and a colossal military defeat for the Iranians. And yet the media is so delusional that they're trying to peddle to us the lie that Iran is either winning or has won the war. Now you know why nobody watches the fake news. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, President Trump went out on the White House lawn. Again, a very hostile press corps. The destroy Trump media, well, they were out to destroy him. And they were saying, what do you say to arguments? You've lost the war. How have you lost the war? The regime survived the U.S.-Israeli onslaught. They're still standing. And now they effectively have blocked the Strait of Hormuz. They're driving oil and energy prices soaring. They've spiked energy prices. and they have you politically on the run. This is the argument that they were making to the president. Listen now to Trump's response. Roll cut 3, Mike.
We defeated their Navy. We defeated their Air Force. We defeated their anti-aircraft. We defeated their radar. We defeated their leaders. Their leaders are all dead. And now all we do is we'll open up the strait, even though we don't use it, because we have a lot of other countries in the world that do use it that are either afraid or weak or cheap. I don't know what it is, but we were not helped by NATO, that I can tell you.
So he's still angry at NATO. I don't blame him. And he's right. They're either too afraid, too weak, or too cheap. They either lack the will or they're afraid to go in and help us clear the Strait of Hormuz and open up all that traffic, that maritime traffic, so these oil tankers can start going from the Persian Gulf to Europe, Asia, and the rest of the world. Listen now to Trump again on the White House lawn saying, look, stop with the defeatism argument. You're sounding ridiculous. You want to know exactly how we defeated them militarily? You want me to spell it out for you? Okay, here it is by the numbers. Roll cut 3A, Mike.
Let me just tell you, we win, no matter what. We've defeated their military. They have no Navy. 158 ships are underwater, undersea. All of their minesweepers and all of their, they call them mine droppers. Can you imagine? A country has 28 mine droppers. You think that's nice? With all of that being said, they're all defeated, by the way. They're all at the bottom of the sea. Now, with all of that, they have no Navy. They have no radar. They have no Air Force. Their leaders are all dead. Khomeini is gone. For many years he ruled. He's gone. With all of that, let's see what happens. But from my standpoint, I don't care. Thank you.
Meaning if they have a peace deal or not. He's basically saying, look, ultimately I don't care. Look, it seems to me quite obvious that, yeah, President Trump obviously would like to get a deal in which Iran, finally on paper says, we will never get a nuclear weapon, period. No uranium enrichment, 0. No nuclear program, 0. And all that enriched uranium that's in the ground, that 60% grade uranium, about 900 pounds worth, we're going to excavate it and we're going to hand it over to the United States. But he's saying, look, even if I don't get that, Iran has so militarily been devastated. I clear the Strait of Hormuz and keep it open and get world commerce flowing again and all these energy and oil, going through the strait, and gas and oil prices start tumbling down. I'm going to declare victory and go home. And, we'll watch the enriched uranium. If they try to make a move for it, we'll bomb them again. And if I see they're ever trying to rebuild their military or reconstitute their nuclear program again, we'll bomb them again. I'd rather have a deal, obviously, but if we don't have a deal, we've won. The last piece left is the Strait of Hormuz. Hence the blockade and him now putting massive economic pressure on the regime and basically he's now going to try to bankrupt them and see if they'll come to the talks or not. But it doesn't matter because he's clearing the strait as he's imposing the blockade. So there are 2 naval missions or operations going on. As we speak, we're clearing the strait with minesweepers, with our Navy, and we're imposing a crippling tight blockade to strangle Iran's economy. Now, just very quickly, because many of you are asking, well, Jeff, is he ever going to allow the mullahs to have a tolling system like they've done the last couple of weeks? And Trump, this was at Andrews Air Force Base, and he said, listen, we told them in Islamabad, JD to their faces said, you will not toll a single ship That's done. That's over with. The Strait of Hormuz will be an open, free waterway like it was before the war. Roll cut 5A, Mike.
You're not going to let them toll the strait, are you? I mean, it's international.
No, we're not going to let that. It's international water. If they're doing that, nobody knows if they're doing that. But if they're doing that, we're not.
No, we're not going to let it happen. And that was one of the red lines that we presented to them in Pakistan. 617. Now, look, I thought they were wasting their time. You know my arguments last week. I said they're going to try to string us along, play us for fools, delay, obfuscate, lie, because that's what these mullahs do. But, to be fair, JD didn't fall for any of it. But if there was good that came out of that negotiation, the world saw that Trump really does want peace. He extended an olive branch. It was the regime that said no. And number two, and I think even more importantly, now, not through a mediator, not through Pakistan, not through Turkey, not through Egypt, from the vice president's lips to their deaf ears, to their fanatical ears. They know exactly what we expect from them and what our red lines are that we will not allow them to cross. So the ball now is in their court. And it's up to them. But as Trump says, I don't care. I'm giving you a chance to make a peace deal. If not, no problem. No problem. We're going to reopen that strait, and then we're coming home. 617-266-6868. CJ in Boston. Thanks for holding, CJ, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, CJ.
I would just like to respond to the Pope's comments on the war being immoral. My response, if I was President Trump, would have said, "Oh, most holy Father, was it immoral for Catholic priests to sexually assault thousands and thousands of children throughout the world while they should have been prosecuted? You pardon them." That would have been my response. What troubled me about the negotiations this past week with Vance is when he made the public statement, and I'll quote him, "I think we were quite flexible. We were quite accommodating. Since when has the United States of America, who has the greatest military in the world, ever wanted to be flexible and accommodating to a terrorist nation? I thought America's stance is we do not accommodate terrorist organizations, or terrorist countries." Trump here has made a brilliant move. This is brilliant. The island of Kars no longer has to be occupied. There are 5 or 6 pipelines that go directly from the oil fields to that island to fill those tanks. But with the ships not being able to leave, we don't have to put any troops there. Any question about whether we can take out those small boats? We did it with the Venezuelan drug boats. We can do the same thing with the drones. We'll take them out one by one. Jeff, for anyone, independent Republican, to stay home, they would be biting off their nose to spite their face, as they say, to stay home and not vote in the upcoming midterm elections. That's what that would be doing. A presidency is sort of like a sports team that wins 2 or 3 Super Bowls and falls apart. They lose, and they lose 2 or 3 key people, and it takes them 5, 6, 7 years to come back to have a nice team. And it's the same thing here. Don't expect this to happen. Trump's only been in office, about a year and a half. I mean, things do not happen overnight. He's working on it, and he's doing a great deal in doing what he's doing. With the Chinese being choked here for oil, they're going to have to make a move here. There will be a move. Something will be said or something will be done because they cannot operate. The European Union is really hurting here. And hopefully Trump will take the stance There's been some talk about him pulling some troops out of Japan. He needs to get them out of Germany. These nations, if you're watching any of the international news, they actually hate Trump. And why the mainstream media is pushing this narrative that America is losing the war is that Trump can never be a winner. Trump can never succeed. You know, they try to push that a win for Trump is a loss for America. Let me give you a quick story, Jeff. When the snow falls here in Boston, you know, we would get they would predict 6 inches of snow tomorrow, and the mainstream media would be on TV with people running into the supermarket, stripping the shelves, taking the water. The shelves would be bare by 8 o'clock at night. And my father used to say to me, he said, you know, those are only snowflakes falling. I wonder what they would be doing if bombs were falling. And he never said anything much more than that, but he repeated that more than once. And I know exactly what he meant. He meant, where is the courage of the American people? Where is the strength of the American people? Where is it now where we're at war and they're worrying about the cost of a gallon of gas? Yes, it's very important, but he's trying to do his best to get things done for our country. He's done so in the past, and he'll do it. He had oil in his first term down to $25 a barrel. It may not get that low, but it'll be down there. As soon as the European Union gets choked, believe me, they're going to be forced to participate in this. And just in ending, let me say this about Vice President Vance on those negotiations. He could have quickly ended those negotiations, walked out of there a winner, if he told those mullahs that the president got a call from Allah stating that the Americans have killed so many of their military there, he could no longer offer 72 virgins. Instead, they would be handed out 72 Virginians, all transgendered.
We killed so many of them, they're running out of virgins up there. CJ, thank you very much for that call. 617-266-6868 is the number. No, look, I think there's no question that they overplayed their hand. JD was completely right. They came in there acting like they won the war. JD's like, what are you guys smoking up there in Tehran? And now they're going to learn. Now they're really learning. Now, look, I can just tell you what they're saying. I don't know if they have anything left to throw at us, but the regime is now saying that this blockade is going to be met with a horrible response. So they are threatening a massive response across the region and here in the United States. They're panicking. You can see that. Trump's putting now the boot on their economic neck. So I don't know if they're going to activate sleeper cells. I don't know if they're going to unleash the Houthis in the Red Sea and try to cut off oil shipping there as well, which will also drive up more, the price of energy and gas even more on the world market. I don't know. We shall see what they're planning. But they are going absolutely ballistic now in Tehran. 617-266-6868. Jim in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Jim, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff, I just want to thank you for letting both sides of MAGA speak on this. I definitely come from the other side. I'm more anti-war, and I don't agree with a lot of this. So I just want to thank you for allowing that forum to happen.
Oh, my pleasure, Jim. Go ahead. What do you make now of the blockade? Are you for it or are you against it?
So I didn't think we had many good options at all. I really was hoping for a negotiated plan. I do think this will increase the odds of getting China involved, especially China. I'll say Russia too. They're already involved, but definitely more so China. And I do worry about the World War III consequences. I don't think I'm trying to be doomsday scenario here, but if you want to push that envelope, we're doing it pretty good. I mean, we started with Biden. We lit the fuse there. It kind of went off in the Middle East with Israel and Palestine and everyone, Yemen, and then Russia, Ukraine, obviously, first time since World War II, we saw that. We dealt with COVID. So, we had a really, and the country's divided. We have a very divided country, which I've always been warning about. Never good to go into any situation like this, like that. So do I think it's a bad idea? Yeah, I don't like it. I think there's other options that I would have maybe pursued, maybe a little more extreme. I would probably, when he first did the State of the Union, he said, let other people handle it. We won. All right, good. Take the win. I kind of disagree with the winning scenario a little bit, but, yes, we did destroy the military facilities, the Navy, and let's kind of walk away from that. So I was more on that side. Now we do the blockade. I think that will only make things worse. I do think they have things in Iran they still can attack with. Yeah, we got rid of a lot, but they still have a lot of drones, which will cause a lot of damage, which will affect the allies in that region of ours, which can attack our ships. And I think that, I think to me, I would have said try to work with Russia, try to work with China. And I'm not saying be military alliances with them, but try to maybe isolate the Muslim extremists a little more and not make it like we're, the one causing all the problems. Try to change the narrative a little bit. Don't go it alone. Japan, South Korea, huge trading partners are ours. They're going to suffer bad, and we really rely on them for a lot. I'm not a globalist, but I do know we need to trade with people because we don't produce as much in here. One reason I voted for Trump, I really wanted to get more in this country. But until then, we rely on a lot of these countries. We won't hit it first, but it'll come to us eventually. Like I said, I think I would have gone an alternate route. I would work in negotiations. I think escalation only leads one way. I do think the World War scenario becomes very more likely every day, and that's not a war we want to see. World War II, we see a lot of people call in and they say, don't speak out against war, be American. I'm sorry, dissent to me is the highest form of patriotism. I think during Iraq and Afghanistan, if people spoke out, we would have had trillions in debt and we would have had countless lives lost. And I think that's there's a time to speak out against these things, and I think Trump has a lot of yes men around him, and I never think that's good for anyone. Have people disagree with you. Have people point you in the right direction. I don't think this is 3D chess for Trump. I think it's 3D chess for the military-industrial complex and the deep state. If you follow the money, it goes right there. It went there during Biden. It's going there during Trump. It's gone there the last 25 years. So if you want to talk about 3D chess and all this game, they're the ones that are playing it, if you ask me. And it's a shame, and I'm not too confident starting this week, but I guess we'll see what happens. But I wish we could just really try those other techniques and see what would come of that.
Well, Jim, I think Trump was under a lot of pressure to take Karg Island. He was under pressure to do really two things. One, either take Karg Island, which is where most of Iran's oil export hub comes from, and he didn't want to do that. Number one, it could get our special operations forces killed in an ambush or an attack, and he doesn't want to lose American lives. He also doesn't want to destroy, potentially, Iran's oil infrastructure. Why? Because he doesn't want to demoralize the civilian population. He doesn't want the Iranian people, many of them can't stand the Ayatollah, can't stand the IRGC. They're opposed to the regime. If he destroys or our military destroys their oil infrastructure, they're going to say, well, how are we going to live? You just screwed us for the next 20 years. And so he doesn't want the people to turn against him and the U.S. So he said, no, I want to hurt him economically, but I don't want to destroy their oil infrastructure because then I lose the people. And I don't want to lose the people because they're ultimately going to be our strongest ally in the long run. Then came, hit the bridges, hit the power plants, their entire civilian infrastructure, just devastated. And Trump again said, well, I threatened the mullahs. It worked. It got him to the negotiating table. But I'm not going to have millions of Iranians go without power and water and electricity and God knows what else. Then I'm going to really lose the Iranian people. I don't want to do that. Never mind that it could kill potentially down the road, a lot of civilians. So he said, no, I'm not going to do that either. So what I'm going to do is the blockade, because it targets the regime specifically. It targets their oil revenue. It puts maximum economic pressure. Now, you're right. Escalation often leads to more escalation. So we're going to see what the response from the regime is going to be. And I think you're right. The wild card is China. China gets its oil not just from the Strait of Hormuz, which is being still blockaded by the Iranians, but they get a lot of oil from Iran, which we're now we're blocking now that. So the question is, what does China do? Now, my understanding is, and I'm praying, that Trump called Xi Jinping. They're going to be meeting in a couple of weeks, and said, Xi, I need you to hang on just a little bit longer. This war is going to be coming to an end, and you guys are going to be able to refill your inventories, and the oil's going to flow. All right, very, very quick. I want to go back to the phone lines. This is President Trump. He just called in to Maria Bartiromo on Fox yesterday, and she asked him point blank, you've been taking a lot of blowback on that infamous now Truth Social post about a whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. And so she says, do you regret sending out that Truth Social? Do you think maybe now in retrospect you crossed the line? Listen to Trump's response. Roll cut 6, Mike.
President, you were criticized for this tweet because you said a whole civilization will die tonight. What do you want to say about that? And what can you tell us about next steps here? Are you planning further destruction?
Yeah, I'm fine with it. That statement brought them to the table, with the exception of the one thing, which I believe that they're going to give up on. I believe they're going to give up on that pretty soon, to be honest, because it's not going to work. We actually thought we had them, and then all of a sudden they said, no, we won. So, but I believe.
Now, he's talking about the Strait of Hormuz. And just, if you remember, it's all, the war goes back and forth and people forget things. One of the key conditions for the ceasefire was that Iran would have to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. And, of course, they didn't do that. They reneged. So what Trump is saying is, it brought them to the table, which it did. It scared the living daylights out of them. It worked. And he said, with the exception of one thing, and that's obviously the Strait of Hormuz. And he's basically now saying, I'm going to take care of that. So it's, but he goes on. He makes a very good point. I remember I made that point at the time, and the president now is making the exact same point. Listen to Trump say, whoa, 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 whoa. I make one Truth Social post, and suddenly I'm the second coming of Genghis Khan. But they go about death to America, death to Israel, death to the Jews, you name it, death to the West. And it's no problem. They can call for the genocidal annihilation of entire civilizations every freaking day. And that's okay. But if I make one Truth Social post, suddenly I'm the bad guy. Roll cut 6A, Mike.
They're allowed to say death to America, death to this, death to. I make one statement, they say, oh, such a big deal. Let me tell you, that statement got them to the bargaining table, and they haven't left. They haven't left the bargaining table. I predict they come back and they give us everything we want. And I told my people, I want everything. I don't want 90%. I don't want 95%. I told them, I want everything.
Well, and what they
have no cards. Maria.
Yep.
They have no cards. Their Navy is gone. Their Air Force is gone. Totally gone. They have nothing. They have no ship.
All they have is the Strait of Hormuz, and Trump now is going to take that one card away from them. 617-266, or that's the point of the blockade anyway. 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree. Danny in Plymouth. Thanks for holding, Danny, and welcome.
Hi, thank you. I called last week about Japan being the same when we were giving them the last minute to surrender the strait, and I'm not going to go back to that. But I do remember in the 50s that it took Eisenhower, Ike, to make the Korean War stop at the thing when he threatened nukes on Korea. And like I said, these are fanatics. Only way you're going to be able to do anything is bring total war to them. I had a friend that watched the shoe bomber, Richard Reed in Plymouth,
And Richard Reed said, we haven't brought real war on anybody since World War II. And that's true. And that's the only thing that they respect is fanatics, and you got to wipe them out. And I think Trump's doing everything that he needs to do so they can't say he didn't give him every chance. I think in a week, if this does not open up and we don't get unconditional surrender from them, we will be going to bring total war on them. I wish that wouldn't happen, but something we have to do. That's the only thing they understand.
Well, Danny, he's threatening them now. This is breaking as I speak to you, that he's going to resume a full bombardment of Iran because the Iranians now, if you can believe it, are threatening to attack regional ports in the Persian Gulf. So they're going to attack ports in Saudi Arabia, ports in Iraq, Kuwait, United Arab Emirates, Bahrain. So what they're basically saying is, you think you're going to block us from being able to sell oil? By the time we're done, none of those Persian Gulf countries will be able to sell a drop of oil for months and months and months on the international market. So what they're threatening is to collapse the global economy. In other words, to trigger a global depression. So Iran is now on the verge of declaring total war. And Trump has now said, you touch a single regional port, and I'm telling you, you're going to see a bombardment the likes you have never seen. Okay, this story now is just getting truly bigger and bigger. It's gone international. It really has gone global. So this feud between Trump and now Pope Leo XIV and the Vatican, as you know, the Pope has been a staunch critic of the war with Iran. He has criticized Trump in particular, without mentioning his name, but he's not happy with the U.S.-Israeli strikes on Iran, saying that it's not a just war and that civilians are innocents are needlessly being killed. President Trump blasted Pope Leo yesterday on Truth Social, saying, quote, Pope Leo is weak on crime and terrible for foreign policy. And in particular, he said that he was upset with Pope Leo for criticizing his removal of Maduro from Venezuela, saying, who do you think released the prisons, these drug traffickers and murderers and killers from all the prisons, and sent them to our country? It was Maduro, and yet you said nothing about that. And as far as the war with Iran, he attacked Pope Leo, saying, I was elected to prevent Iran from acquiring a nuclear bomb, and that Pope Leo is really acting more like a politician, echoing Democrat talking points, than he is as the Pope. And so Trump ended with, Leo should get his act together as Pope, use common sense, stop catering to the radical left, and focus on being a great Pope and not a politician. It is hurting him very badly. And more importantly, it is hurting the Catholic Church. Well, now the Pope has responded. And so he came out today. He's on a papal plane flying to Algeria I guess he's going to be visiting Algeria. And he took a shot first at Trump's Truth Social, saying it's ironic, the name of the site itself, say no more. Basically, he's saying that Trump is dishonest, that Truth Social, it's not a truth. He doesn't talk truth. But then he said, I will not enter into debate. He then said, I will not be intimidated by the Trump administration, or quote, I have no fear of the Trump administration. And then he went on to say that his calls for peace are rooted in the gospel and rooted in the teachings of the Catholic Church, that he is not behaving like a politician, but as a pope who is speaking out for the fundamental teachings of the church, and he is urging President Trump to end the war with Iran now and to stop the killing and to stop the war. And it looks like they're going to continue. Trump now looks like he's going to, in fact, he gave an interview to reporters saying he does not like the Pope. He's not a fan of the Pope. He prefers his brother, who, by the way, is the Pope's brother is a huge MAGA and Trump supporter, and that the Pope should mind his own business and not get involved in the war and not get involved in politics. So you now have a feud, a division between Pope Leo, the Holy Father, the Vatican, and President Trump. What do you make of it? 617-266-6868. Steve in Sturbridge. Thanks for holding, Steve, and welcome.
Thanks, Jeff, for taking my call.
My pleasure.
Even with the Pope, this could be wrapped in. I think what Trump needs to do is go on a fireside chat, but not, and have the people there to, not the press, but have the common people like, he used to do when he used to have them come up and ask questions. First, I would lay out the whole thing, and I'd say, okay, back in 79, we had this Trump problem because Jimmy Carter did it, let it go. Then we had it with Clinton. We had Reagan had to go in there, bail out people, everything else. And mention all the groups, all the Muslim groups that are working as proxies for these, and mention all the way up to Obama bringing him a ton of cash. Say, how did he pull that off? I says, without no congressional oversight, he and everything else. And mention, say, if you go to the bank with $500, you got to declare, you got to tell her, you got to just about drop your pants and show him everything. But yet, when he does it, he brings them pallets of gold and money and everything else. It's okay, no problem. Mention about Hillary Clinton with the deal with Russia that she sold the
uranium.
Say, look at what it did, enriched Russia. Do we want Iran to get enriched with this? And then mention, look at now we got an open border, and we have proxies in there. Mention some of these, Akbar Allahs that they've been running around and shooting people. Mention a bunch of those. Mention that one in that nightclub that happened in Florida that was under Obama, and then that big one there. That was another one. So we have proxies here, and say we even had him when Joe Biden left the border open. We had him even right on TV telling us, you're going to know who I am after I get done with it. Say, do we have to open our country toward 9/11? And say, what's going to happen if Iran starts shooting missiles at the other countries? The other Middle East was going to want nuclear weapons. Say, do we want a nuclear Middle East? Say, you're asking for peace, and you could say that to the Pope. You could say you're asking for a Middle East, peaceful Middle East. Well, you're not going to get a peaceful Middle East if you're going to have the biggest antagonizer running their game and doing it with all their proxies and everything else. It's not only them, it's them. I'd spell out the whole thing and then have people like you and I getting up there and asking questions and say, hey, we got patriots out there defending our country, doing this, the military. Get the military involved. Say, now I'm asking you, the American people who are patriots, stay by me and go for the midterm election, and the people that don't are going to be protesting, the media and everything else. Those are not part of America anymore. They don't want to be America. They want to be something else.
Well,
what do you
Steve,
think?
I mean, there's a lot to chew on there. You've laid out a lot of points. Look, I think there's no question. I've said this before. Militarily, this has been a stunning campaign. There's no question. We have devastated Iran's military. The question is now on two issues. And I think on these two issues, this is why Trump is so focused now on this blockade. Can he restore the Strait of Hormuz? I think the answer is yes. I think it's going to take some time, but I think the answer is yes. The other issue is going to be the enriched uranium that you were talking about in one of your earlier points. Can we get it from underneath all that rubble and inside the ground after the last airstrikes that we did, Operation Midnight Hammer? If he can get both of those, then there's no question. He's won. He has truly set the mullahs back 10, 15, 20 years. And he can go to the American people and say, I know you suffered. I know gas went high. I know inflation started to come back. I know energy prices started to soar. You know, the good news is the inflation, it is going up, but it's all tied to the war in Iran. It's not elsewhere in the economy. It's just because gas and oil went up. So gas and oil are going to start coming down. When that comes down, inflation is going to come down. So hopefully by September, October, just in time for the midterms, gas is going to go down to whatever, $3 a gallon or whatever it is. And people are going to say, the economy is roaring back, number one. And number two, look, Trump is going to have a real accomplishment. He's going to go down in history and say, look, we fought a war with Iran. Iran lost, and we broke the mullahs back. We shattered their military, and we obliterated their nuclear program for at least a generation, maybe two. Now, you get that, many Americans will say it was worth it. If the strait, though, is still blocked, I don't think it will, but I'm just telling you the thinking on this, and gas remains high, and world oil prices remain high, and the mullahs still have the enriched uranium, then I think many Americans are going to say it was a Pyrrhic victory. I.e., it was a victory. You won the battle, but you lost the war. So I think that's what Trump understands. The end game now, I think, will decide a lot in November. And that's why I'm hoping this blockade works and it finally cracks them. Because you cleared that Strait of Hormuz. It's the ball game. I think Trump then says, we won. And the country's going to say, amen. Anyway, just my opinion. 617-266-6868. Mike, can I squeeze in another call? All right, let's go to Paul in West Bridgewater. Thanks for holding, Paul, and welcome.
Hey, good morning, Jeff. Great show. You're a great host.
Thank you.
And before I make my point, I haven't. It's been a long time since I've heard from Barbara from Maryland, and I hope everything's okay.
She's a great caller, and I do hope she's okay. You're right. I've been worried about her. All right. It's only, a couple weeks, and it's already becoming one of our most favorite segments. It is time for Talkback Tit for Tat. Your voices, your reactions, your heart, the true heartbeat of Kuhner country. We asked, you answered, and now we're sharing the best of this week's messages.
We went from feeble, dementia-minded Joe to a diabolical, deranged senior citizen Donald. Nothing's changed, nothing's better.
They'd rather start a world war than fake sending a person up towards the moon. It's all fake anyway. All to distract from the Epstein files.
This one goes out to my favorite Massachusetts communist, Bill in Sudbury. There's one reason only you listen to the Kuhner man as much as you do. You love him in a very sexual way. Dr. Grace, watch your back. You have competition, my friend.
Jeff, I'm so sick of talking about Iran.
You know, I would call you, but the last time I called was 5 years ago, and I proved you wrong, and you hung up on me. So I haven't called back since because you don't want to hear a different opinion.
This peace deal is just a lot of Bravo Sierra.
Kuhner, Grace needs to take a chill pill, all right?
That's it. I'm done. I can't take any more of your pumper music and the stupidity going on between. Have a nice day. Bye. I'm not listening to you anymore.
Oh, man, I got to tell you, Radio Gold. I'm serious. Okay, my friends, the best way to listen to the Kuhner Report is on the iHeartRadio app. And as you just heard, we've got Kuhner's Talkback Tit for Tat. All you got to do is just look for the red microphone in the upper right corner of the app. Leave a message for the Kuhner man, for Sandy, for Mike. Agree, disagree, respond, react, anything. Leave your talkbacks anytime during the week. And every Monday, as you just heard now in the final segment, we are going to play the best ones on the air. So download the iHeart app, hit that red mic, and join Kuhner's Talkback tit for tat, baby. Okay, let's go right back to Paul in West Bridgewater. Paul, thank you for holding. And please pick up where you left off.
Hi, Jeff. What I said
Mike,
was
literally, Mike had a brain freeze. I'm telling you. It's like, I'm like, Mike, he's not, there's no response.
Yeah.
He's like, who? Paul, go ahead, my friend. My apologies.
No problem. I was glad to hear you laugh after tit for tat. That was really refreshing. The one thing I wanted to bring up, and you mentioned the pipeline that's being built from Europe and I think to Israel.
No, from Saudi Arabia.
Oh, Saudi, okay.
Yeah, it's going to be all Persian Gulf oil, and it's going to go all the way from the Persian Gulf to Israel into the Mediterranean, bypassing the entire Strait of Hormuz.
Well, now that's the type of technology that we need in the United States. I don't know how many tankers it might get rid of by supplying oil that way, but if you know, the United States still uses those outdated trains with all of those tank cars and how vulnerable they are. The ships are vulnerable in the Middle East. The trains are vulnerable here in the United States. And every time there's a new pipeline being talked about in the United States, it gets shut down by the loony lefties. And I really think that in order to remove the vulnerability, you remove the exposure that you have with oil tankers in the Middle East and train tankers in the United States. And I was wondering what your thoughts would be on that.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think you hit the nail right on the head. I think, first of all, environmentally, it's much safer to do it with pipelines. I think from a national security point of view, you made the point about trains transporting oil. Look, it's obvious. Okay, I'm stating the sky is blue. You don't think one of these sleeper cells, Hezbollah or whoever, the Iranians have snuck into our country under Biden, wouldn't like to hit one of those trains and cause a massive explosion on American soil? Of course. So, these tankers as well potentially are vulnerable. And, a big oil spill in the ocean is an ecological disaster. So, and when you ask these Persian Gulf countries and Israel, how'd you guys get this pipeline approved so quick? And by the way, it's going to be built in a couple of years. That's what I mean. This Strait of Hormuz, the Iranians blocking it, this is their last hurrah. Having their stranglehold on this choke point, that's going to be gone in a couple of years. And they were open about it. They go, we don't have crazy environmentalists like you guys do. You guys, it takes 20, 25 years, if you're lucky, to get a pipeline built. If you're lucky. Here, it's 18 months. And it's environmentally very sound. The pipeline is not going to damage anything. It's going to be extremely well constructed, very well built. So, you say, well, how'd you do it? He goes, well, we're not beholden to the green mafia and to green socialists like you guys are in the United States.